This full moon in Leo is asking a dangerous question. Who do you follow and who do you answer to? Because leadership rooted in ego is loud right now. But leadership rooted in heart, that's the kind that changes history. If you don't know me, I'm Whitney Kranz. I'm your mystic sis and your astro bestie, and it is my God's given duty to translate the otherworldly wisdom of the cosmos into down-to-earth insights. And this place, the House of Good Spirit, this is where we gather to learn about each lunation so that we can move forward with them toward our hopes, our dreams, and our wishes for the future. Please do me a favor, like this, subscribe, and give me a comment below where my fellow Leos at. Are we ready for 2026 eclipses, not to mention Jupiter, that are coming for us? Let me know in the comments. So today we're going to talk about our full moon in Leo. It happens on Sunday, February 1st at 4:09 p.m. Central USA time at 13 degrees of Leo. Leo the lion. Now this full moon is happening opposite a massive pileup of planets in Aquarius. So there is so much energy radiating from the sign of the collective. Now, the ruler of this lunation, the sun, is there in Aquarius too. But here in Aquarius, it's in its detriment. Now, what that means when we think of Leo as the sign of leaders and kings and solar figures generally, it means that supreme leadership is not what it takes here. But it can also mean that our path in life, can also be working against the odds, if not worked with intentionally here. So let's look at the chart. This lunation, you can see over in Aquarius, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets. So we have co-present the sun, Venus and Mercury conjoined together. Now, in this sign of the people, what Mercury and Venus are doing here together, they have in fact just conjoined exactly on Thursday. We're hearing calls for peace. We are seeking diplomacy. We are using our voice for good. And that reverberates around this full moon. Now, we also have co-present both Mars and Pluto, who are widely conjunct at this point. And Mars is awfully close to opposing this full moon at 5 degrees away. I think we're going to feel Mars's influence. So we also know that earlier this week, Mars and Pluto conjoined here in Aquarius, and they did that sextile to Neptune, who has newly entered Aries this week. Together, that's bringing this feeling of consequences of righteous rage. It's speaking of a reckoning. And I think also represents Mars-Pluto together. Not only is this massive reveal of shadow, but also a place of power. And with Mars involved, it makes me think wounds. There is a cauterizing of a wound that is happening in Aquarius right now. Now, this full moon, I'm going to tell you what it all means in a second. But it's giving the sense that this full moon isn't about power grabs, right? The moon is opposing all of that Aquarian collective energy. What it is about is power returns, or returns to power. Returns as in gaining back power collectively, or returns as in the benefits of claiming our own. Now, we always work up the full context here. And we can't talk about context of this lunation if we don't look backward as well, because the full moon, this is the blossoming point of a new moon that we had in Leo on July 24th, 2025. Now that was a loud new moon. That moon was opposing Pluto, so we have a similarity here, right? It was trine to Saturn and Neptune, and it was sextile to Uranus. All of that meant that what is coming through in the blossoming of this moon cycle is incredibly important in the larger story of 2026 and really history. That's because All of those planets I just mentioned in aspect to that new moon in Leo are our outer planets who call for massive change. And at that point, those planets, Pluto was in Aquarius, where it is to stay in 2026 and forward. Saturn and Neptune were in Aries, where they will both be to stay in 2026 and forward. And it was sextile Uranus, who was in Gemini, where as of late April of this year, Uranus will be to stay in 2026. This gives us a lot of sort of preview or almost teaser context. Now, what I haven't talked about yet is Mercury. Yes, Mercury, our trickster of the zodiac, the fastest moving personal planet. Now, what's interesting about Mercury under that new moon on July 24th was that Mercury was at this exact degree of this full moon. Mercury was at 13 degrees Leo under the new moon. What that's telling me is there is a story coming forward, a story about all mercurial things, which are stories, words, rhetoric, how we use our voice, what we're speaking toward, right? All of those themes inside leadership. Now, if you'll remember, going back to July 24th, that was loud. We had loud astrology last summer. In the US, some of the news headlines that correlated with that July 24th new moon, like the Epstein files, were all over the news. CBS had just canceled Stephen Colbert's Late Show after he openly criticized the president's control of the media. Gaza had just experienced some of its most horrific moments of genocide, with 62 Palestinians being killed that day trying to collect food. Here in the US again, CBP, or Customs and Border Control, first warned that US permanent residents must carry their green cards and proof of immigration status. Now, sorry, not sorry if that seems politically charged. Usually on this channel, we stay out of politics. But here's the thing. Aquarius is collective, and this is a major collective moment. Our world is moving through it right now. And I'm moving through it right now. So it's going to be hard for me to keep it out of here. I live in Minneapolis. That skyline you see behind me in my nighttime videos, that's Minneapolis. And in my own city, in my backyard, people are being murdered. I've been put in the position to stand up as a legal observer. I have marched along with 50,000 people. And so living in Minneapolis right now under federal occupation is horrific. It's been really hard to do my job, to do this job. But at the same time, I know that channeling this power is my gift. Using my voice and connecting the astrology to our personal times is a gift. So whether you and I agree on our political stance, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that in times of trouble and terror, that we band together. That is a full moon in Leo opposite Aquarius. Now, before I dig into what this full moon in Leo means, it also bears stating that this is our last lunation before eclipse season. And eclipse season sets some deep karmic work, revelations, and changes in progress. Now, that work has already been seeded. But what we're finding now, this Leo lunation, if I give this a I like it or I don't like it rating, like pass, fail, this lunation passes. Remember Capricorn? That Capricorn new moon was freaking tough. That was a fail rating. That was a Whitney doesn't like it. I like this full moon in Leo, and I think it's doing important things for us. I also think that we have a bit of a gift here with Venus and Mercury conjoined. It's radiating love. It's radiating this moment of quiet amid the eye of the storm. And maybe quiet isn't the right word, but a moment rather of stillness and togetherness. Okay, so I've gone off on my little rant. Thank you for letting me get on my soapbox. Now let's talk about what this means. And my first resonant theme for this full moon in Leo is heart-centered leadership. Now, last July, under the new moon in Leo, you may have been asked to choose the courageous path, to put your heart front and center. I know I was. Under that new moon, I was given the opportunity to go back to my full-time corporate job. As tempting as the stable path was, I needed to root into my own courage and put my heart front and center. This is what Leo does best. So right now, we are asked to claim the courageous path. We are asked to put our personal sovereignty at the forefront. Leo is the custodian of the heart center, not the ruler of others. There's this misconception about Leo that Leo craves fame, Leo craves attention, Leo wants to be in front of the camera. And that may be true for some Leo placements, but more than anything, Leo attracts the gaze like a magnet, not because they want it, but because it is part of their path to rule, to show up for others. So the other thing that's telling me about this sense of personal sovereignty right now, to claiming our own path, is the fact that Neptune just entered Aries on Monday. Aries is the sign of me. It says, I am the authority. When Neptune is here, it wipes away doubts about who the authority is. In my week ahead post on Instagram, I wrote that this is the moment our blindfold is removed. When we remove our blindfolds, we understand how to move with what is truly ours. Sometimes clarity costs something. Now, when I think about heart-centered leadership, I think about Aslan in Narnia, C.S. Lewis's prolific character in the Chronicles of Narnia series. He's a lion who doesn't rule by force, but instead through moral authority. Aslan is a leader who chooses sacrifice over supremacy. He lays down his life, not for the perfect, but for the one who betrayed the trust of the whole, Edmund. The sacrificial quality to a leader is really important and requires the immense bravery of Leo. And I think right now we are being asked to sustain change through bravery, through taking hold of our own courage. True leadership requires sacrifice. True leaders make hard decisions. Now, I always do a little research, a little preparation before I film these episodes. And so, of course, what did I do? I tracked this transit in my own life. I looked back into my journal entries from July 24th, and that was how I made the connection about that job offer. But I also detailed a dream that I still now remember to this day that felt like it was all about the Leo new moon. And in this dream, my husband and I were sat in this grand dining room at this huge, long table. There was a lion at the head of the table presiding over the entire gathering. And who was seated around me except a pack of tigers? Isn't it interesting? These big cats don't hang out. Yet this lion was presiding over a group of others who were of a different species. And in this dream, while most were getting along just fine, there was one tiger who was being a straight up troublemaker, who was bullying others, who was getting really aggressive when the situation didn't call for it. And what the head lion did was remove the poison from the well. The head lion asked all of the other tigers to help remove from their midst the one who was causing trouble. And good leadership requires that authority to make that decision, right? But good leaders help the others see why what needs to be done needs to be done. And I think that's an important story that illustrates how important it is to surround yourself with the right people and the right ideas, but also to surround yourself with people who are different from you, who come from a different place, a different background, so we can hear and cooperate with everyone. But at the same time, we must eliminate toxicity. We must eliminate bullying. We must eliminate mess and distraction. And part of true leadership is understanding in the heart when it is time to remove poison from the well, lest it seep through the entire community. It's about removing toxic loyalty or toxic positivity even. Where am I getting all this toxic talk? I'm getting it from the fact that Mars and Pluto just conjoined, and are co-present here with this lunation, very close. Now, what this shows is that Leo leadership isn't about being adored or popular. Just like I said, the typical Leo doesn't crave fame, but that Leo leadership is about making sacrifices, about being willing to be disliked even in order to protect your future and protect yourself and protect your people. And so let's talk about the people, because that's the other piece of this full moon. It is a time when we hear the collective roar, because the moon is reflecting back the voice of the people in this very loud moment. And what we're seeing are organized movements, right? Fire grows with the right amount of air, but fire is put out with the wrong amount. I'm talking about fire because Leo is a fire sign. And so it's important for us to give airtime to the right voices while wiping away the divisive, the toxic, the lies. And I think what we're being called to do now is to use what we've learned since that new moon on July 24th, right? That's why Mercury is a big deal here, because Mercury is part of the collective voice and revelation around the truth. And on the collective truths and current events, I wanted to read you something that I wrote. Yes, I am a bit of a writer and not just a speaker. In fact, when I started my podcast, it was really, really hard for me not to script the entire thing. So I wrote this last year in January 2025 under the Sun-Pluto conjunction that preceded the 2025 full moon in Leo. Now, it continues to ring true, and in a little twist of fate, actually showed up on my Instagram notifications this morning. And so I thought I better include it. We just experienced a similar sequence that was made even more powerful by Venus and Mercury and Mars in the mix. So bear with me. Here is my little essay on Sun Pluto, full moon in Leo. We could even say new moon in Aquarius. And it goes like this. It is up to us. A Sun-Pluto conjunction in Aquarius teaches us that we hold the power within ourselves. When our leaders start proclaiming supreme divine power, it is up to each of us to affirm from where our power actually comes, from whom our power is granted. Remember today that the sun is in detriment in Aquarius. Supreme leadership does not win here. When crowds clap and crow, grinning wide at the words drill, baby drill, and delighting in the destruction of our mother, it is up to each of us to protect her, to affirm that our power comes from the ground beneath us, the waters that flow around us, from the air that we breathe. When talk turns to colonizing our divine cosmos, when the utter destruction of one world isn't enough to satiate power-hungry billionaires, we must recognize that she is in everything around us. Our power is nothing without our divine mother, who animates an otherwise dull world. It is simply not ours to conquer. When we see rights stripped from those already marginalized, we must rally our collective voices and use our power to protect each other, to affirm that we are all human, that we are in this together, that love is love. And protection is power. Protect yourself and your loved ones. Protect those who need it most. Protect the earth, protect our divine mother goddess. I am finding my own power in finding my voice. I am finding my own power in fiercely loving my people. I am finding my power by communing with my personal pantheon. And I am finding my power in community with you. Now tell me, how are you finding your power? I want to hear about your story of personal power in the comments. This is what a full moon in Leo, opposite all of this action in Aquarius alongside Pluto, is asking. And if that wasn't enough, let me highlight it here for you. Leadership is not supreme. It is heart-centered. We are stronger. Our voices are louder when we raise them together as one. And I'll just wrap up what this all means with a quote that I stumbled upon yesterday from Theodore Roosevelt, who, by the way, in researching this episode, I found out has Saturn in Leo opposite Chiron in Aquarius, exactly conjunct this full moon. Isn't astrology great? We call that a synchronicity, people. Theodore Roosevelt's quote goes like this: "Power undirected by high purpose spells calamity, and high purpose by itself is utterly useless if the power to put it into effect is lacking." So with that, what's our power to put into effect here, people? How are we going to use this full moon? Reclaim your agency. As always, I've got a couple journal prompts for you here. These ones are pretty simple. Where have you been giving your authority away, and why? What truth are you finally brave enough to speak? What does heart-centered leadership look like in your real life, in the day-to-day with your work and your family and your community? And where are you being asked to stand visibly, even if it costs you some approval? And now with that, it brings us to the portion of our show when we talk AstroStyle. So, Leo full moon, this is not quiet. We know it is loud, it is roaring, and you're going to work it, okay? You are going to show up. Think regal, brave, embodied, warm, not performative, but maybe a little. You can show up because we want boldness under this full moon in Leo. For color, we're talking jewel tones in winter, right? We have teals, we have purple. If you're in the southern hemisphere, as I know some of you are, I really like the fiery tones for this one. Orange like the sun, yellow like the sun, red like fire. And if jewel tones don't work on your skin tone, then you can dump into those fire tones. I tend to go more toward the pinks, the jewel tones, because you may have noticed my complexion is really, really red. Okay, I'll say rosy, but I find that when I wear red on top close to my face, it just kind of turns up the dial on that tomato aspect. Now, if we're talking all about heart-centeredness here, wear your freaking heart on your sleeve. I mean, Valentine's Day is coming. Maybe this is a heart motif. I've been seeing a lot of heart motifs trending lately. I think that's really fun if it works into your own personal style, if you have a little bit more of a whimsical flair. I think the other way you can wear your heart on your sleeve under this lunation is through graphics, through statement tees. Honestly, I think anything that makes a statement is what it's all about. Challenge yourself over the next, we can say 2 weeks, right? Until the next lunation. Challenge yourself each day to wear one statement piece. It doesn't have to necessarily be your top, and it doesn't have to be graphic words. When I say statement piece, I mean play with some volume, play with some loud pattern. Hell, you could even throw on a huge pair of earrings or a big pair of glasses, but think statement. Along with that, it's like big hair energy, big movie star glasses, red nails, red lips, and it's Leo. We can't forget the leopard print or all animal prints. In fact, as I've been doing my digging into the fashion of 2026, I'm seeing so much leopard print back again. Now, if we get literal here, the sun is freaking huge and it's bright and it attracts others to it. All of the planets orbit around it. So play with some huge volume. Play with the magic of attraction a little bit. How do we play with attraction? A signature scent. If you don't have a signature scent that is your go-to, that you feel so good in, that you love to wear, now is the time to find one. And in fact, there are several nationwide, like apothecary scent lab chains. And I say chain loosely, it's very boutique oriented. You can actually mix your own scent in these places. So check out something like that. Okay, people, this is the time. What is your signature scent if you have one? Maybe we need some scent inspiration. My signature scent going on a decade plus is Victor and Rolf Flower Bomb. Ooh, I love it. But what's even funnier is that I think my signature scent has morphed or transformed. Yes, I put a scent on before I leave the house, but let's be real, I work from home and perfume is expensive. I don't really wear perfume at home, but I do style my hair. And so It's almost like my hair product has become my signature scent. And isn't that so Leo? Your hair product as your signature scent? I am addicted. Now, don't judge me because I spend way too much on this product. I'm addicted to Orbe's dry texturizing spray, and it smells like heaven. I think that's actually my signature scent. Okay, so basically, this is a full moon in the sun sign on the sun's day. Claim it, be bold, and go stare at the sun with your big sunglasses. So now's the time to close it out, friends. Thank you for claiming the power that comes straight from your heart. Because when you do that, it makes a difference. And remember that this is the last lunation before eclipses. Those storylines are already in play, but what we do now sets the tone. And with this full moon, it's like we've worked through our initiation, and in 2 weeks, we'll step through fate's gate. And I will see you then here in the House of Good Spirit for an important and surely little longer episode that will detail a solar eclipse in Aquarius, a once-in-a-lifetime conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, and another Mercury retrograde. Full moon, full heart blessings, my friends. Bye.